All right, we're officially kicking off. Thanks for coming to our Know Your Rights presentation. This was started because of the recent SB4 bills that were passed, the shameful, disgusting SB4 bills. But yeah, thank you all for being here. My name is Terry Chen. I am the Organizing and Policy Associate for Woody Juntos. So hi, Hyunja. So to begin, let's start with language access instructions. For us presenting, we need to speak at a moderate pace. For the audience, if we are speaking too quickly, make sure to do the slow down gesture. It looks like this. If we need to speak louder, raise the roof. And if we need to stop at any time, make a T. Okay. So use your listening device, press the power button and the screen should be glowing. And we're committed to making all of our events language accessible for people that speak different languages. If you have any questions or need assistance, please don't hesitate to ask. Yes, Hyunjin?
I'll translate it.
Oh, they will, don't worry.
But at the sentence.
Oh, I'm gonna do the whole paragraph and then they'll do it. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And now it's their turn.
No, you just.
Okay. Nếu mà ai mà nói tiếng Việt á thì nếu mà người nói cái người presenter mà nói
Louder.
nếu mà cái người presenter mà nói nhanh quá thì mình có thể ra cử chỉ chậm lại. Còn nếu mà người đó nói chậm quá thì mình có thể, hay là nói nhỏ quá thì mình có thể kêu người ta raise voice lên, nói lớn lên. Hoặc là nếu như mà mình có câu hỏi gì ấy, thì mình có thể hỏi người ta. Thì nếu mà mình cần stop, nếu là chậm quá, nhanh quá, chậm quá thì mình có thể làm dấu ngưng lại như thế này, mình đã ngưng lại. Nếu mà ai mà có câu hỏi gì nên cần lúc thì có hỏi. Và mình có thể cái máy để nghe đó, mình có thể bấm cái nút power trên cái mặt, nó sẽ nổi glow lên, nó sẽ nổi sáng lên thì mình có thể nghe được tiếng Việt.
네, 여러분 오셔서 감사합니다. 오늘 발표자분들께서는 적당한 속도로 말씀해 주시고요. 저희 관중 여러분들께서 저희가 너무 빠르게 말한다 싶으면 좀 더 천천히 달라고 이렇게 해주시고요. 소리가 너무 안 들리신다 싶으면 좀 더 크게 해달라고 이렇게 해주시고요. 언제나 멈춰야 될 순간이 있다면 T자 만들어주세요. 이렇게. 그리고 이 청취 장치에 전원 버튼 눌러주시고요. 그러면은 화면에 빛이 들어올 거예요. 네. 오늘 질문이 있으시거나 도움이 필요하시면 주저없이 말씀해 주시고요. 오늘 와주셔서 감사합니다.
Thank you. So give us about 3 minutes on the Zoom while our interpreters go take a seat and we will be right with you. Okay, our communications team will be going around and taking photos and videos of our event. If you do not feel comfortable, please raise your hand now and they will come around and give you a sticker so they know not to take a picture of you. Also, for everybody here and on the Zoom, please take a moment to complete the pre-survey by clicking the link. We will drop it shortly. And now we begin. Thank you, Alondra.
Thanks, Terry. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Alondra Andrade, and I work for Tohari Justice Center. We are a nonprofit organization that serve immigrant survivors of gender-based violence with legal services, social services, and a local policy and advocacy team, which I'm a part of. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Senior Community Engagement Coordinator at Tohari. And I'm here today to talk about the two new SB4 laws that have been signed by the governor and are really affecting our communities, specifically our immigrant community. Tohari, along with many other organizations across Houston and across all the state of Texas, have been organizing in response to these racist laws passed by the governor. This Know Your Rights session was developed to equip the community with the necessary information to be informed as possible. And therefore, I'm thankful for everyone being here today and everyone that contributed to putting this presentation together. Okay, before getting into the more extensive part of this presentation, I do want to mention a disclaimer, and that is that this slide deck is to be used to provide just general information on the new SB4 laws, and this is not to be taken as legal advice. I am not an attorney, therefore I cannot answer any specific questions, as the answers to your questions might vary from case to case depending on what you're asking. This all should be assessed by an attorney, and then I'll also mention that policy changes very quickly, and what's mentioned tonight may be subject to change, and so we'll be updating this information accordingly. Okay. This is today's agenda, so we will begin by reviewing the two anti-immigrant bills. The first one being known as SB4, the law regarding human trafficking or human smuggling, and then SB4 HB4, the law regarding illegal entry and re-entry. Then I will share a bit of Know Your Rights information, some resources that are available, some advocacy opportunities, and then we'll finish off with Q&A so you all can answer questions or ask questions at the very end just to make it easier on our interpreters. Okay, so before getting into what the first SB4 is about, we want to hear from you regarding what do you know about SB4? What have you heard about SB4? So we ask that you amongst your tables discuss amongst yourselves. What have you heard? What do you know? And maybe write it down on a sticky note and put it on the notepad. And then we can quickly share out. 5 minutes for this, okay? Okay, so 5 minutes and I'll be right back.
All right, one more minute.
Terry, do we have time for like people to stare out? Maybe like a minute.
Okay. Alrighty, everybody. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 tables to share out. So if you are comfortable sharing what you've heard regarding the new SB4 laws, please raise your hand. Anybody? Siéntate acá. Thank you, Hanja. Yeah, I mean, we can just do this one and move on.
We checked the background knowledge about the SB. And we have only 3 persons in the table. Yeah. So what we know about SB4 so far is this is anti-immigrant law and racial law, and it can criminalize regular people. So that makes us scary, and also it is associated with human smuggling. So it's we didn't know, and we talked about this, especially in my case. I took a person in my car in the past, and I didn't know at that time, but it's after years I realized that this guy is an undocumented person. So in this situation happened this year, I recharged. So very serious law, I think, bill, and it might happen to anybody. So, and one problem is it's when I give a right to somebody, we cannot ask every time, what is your immigrant status? We cannot ask, so we didn't know even, so it might happen to everybody. That's about it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Round of applause. Okay, so now I'll get into SB4 mandatory minimum and human smuggling law. Okay, so I'll begin by reviewing this first part of this law, which states that people are subject to a 10-year mandatory prison sentence for anyone convicted of smuggling, like they just mentioned. This law means that, like they said, right, if you are in the car and you are driving and you have somebody in the car that is undocumented, that could subject you to get charged under this law. This sentence increases to 15 years if the so-called smuggling is done in an area where disaster is declared, which we'll get into a little bit more in a moment. The sentence can also be reduced to 5 years if the person charged with smuggling cooperates with law enforcement or is smuggling extended family, which I will also get into a little bit more what that means in a moment. This law also sets a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence for operating a stash house, which I will also get more into detail in a moment. It's important to note that this law doesn't just affect the border region, but it affects all of Texas and all of Texans, right? Because even if you have status here, like I have status here, this could still subject me to getting 10-year sentence, 5-year sentence, depending on who I have in the car. And it went into effect, this specific law, on February 6th of this year. So this chart goes into the different levels of offenses, right? The first part of the chart states affirmative defense. And by affirmative defense, it means that it lets the person that's charged present evidence that can cause for there to not be a penalty or just a less of a penalty for smuggling. So in this category would be immediate family members, so like your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your grandma, and so on. And then we go on to when the penalty increases to 5 years. That's when once it's more extended family, like your aunt, your uncle, nieces, nephews, grandpa, grandma, etc. And then this sentence increases to 10 years, mandatory minimum sentence, when the family that you're supposedly smuggling is like your cousin or something like that. So those are the different degrees, and it varies from each category. Oh, why does it look like that? Okay. So like I mentioned before, the sentence increases to 15 years if the smuggling is done in a region where a disaster is declared. In 2021, Governor Abbott declared a border disaster and came out with his disaster declaration. And as of February of this year, 59 counties have signed on. I've highlighted Galveston and Montgomery County because of their close proximity to Harris County and to Houston. Both of those areas are known to be unfriendly places for immigrants. And I know this because of things that have happened to Tahari clients whenever they are in those areas. So it's just something to keep in mind so that community members are cautious when they're there, or they just avoid it altogether. Okay, so I want to ask this question, right? Because when we think of trafficking or smuggling of people, I don't think we normally think of having like your mom in the car or your cousin in the car or your sister. Like, you don't think of it that way. So I'm wondering what y'all think that trafficking of persons or smuggling of persons means. What does that actually mean? So I'll give y'all again, maybe like 3 minutes because this presentation is so long. So 3 minutes, go. Okay. So in the chat, we have, it appears anytime I heard the term, it was associated with a crime, therefore my impression of the meaning was removing someone unwilling from one area to another. After seeing that chart, I would consider the trafficking of persons to include almost anyone. Imagine driving public buses and being convicted of this. So irrational. And then my mom is here and she's gonna share what our table discussed. You got it. Marvin. Thank you. And she always says this, her English is really, really great. So
Actually, English is my second language, so I think, I hope that you understand me. For our table, we associate with a person they call in coyote. And it's like because they pay money to transfer for one country to, especially to United States, to here, and they paid like thousands and thousands of dollars for that. So we know them, those people, and name it by, they say coyotes. It's like traffic of trafficking persons from one country to another country, especially to United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll get into what human smuggling actually means according to this law. So human smuggling under this law is defined as using a vehicle to transport people with the intent, and emphasis on intent, to hide them or flee from law enforcement. This law is written in a way that one does not have to actually be committing the act of human smuggling, but just have the supposed intent to do this. This means that, like I said, you could be driving somebody, a friend, a family member, and that could be considered smuggling when we're very much used to what was just mentioned, right? Coyotes that are actually doing these acts of like bringing folks to the United States and getting paid for it. Alrighty. So another part of this law that I'll also include is that it also covers assisting two or more people to remain on agricultural land without the consent of the owner. So that's also a part of the law. Alrighty. I also earlier mentioned a stash house. And so I'm gonna get into what exactly does that mean. A stash house, and under this law, sets a 5-year mandatory minimum for operating a stash house. A stash house is defined as using, permitting, renting, leasing, any real estate to commit an offense. This could be a room, it could be a tent, a boat, a vehicle, anything that's under a person's control. And the offenses, there are 3 offenses that fall under this law. The first offense is for smuggling of persons, which we just defined. The second is for trafficking of persons. And the third is for the promotion of prostitution in these stash houses. As you all can probably note, what worries us when we review this law is that folks can be accused of human smuggling for simply doing things that we already do. And so we'll be reviewing critical know your rights information, like your constitutional rights, and what to prepare for like worst case scenarios later on in the presentation. Alrighty. So now we will get into SB4, HB4, which is on illegal entry and re-entry. I don't know why it looks like that. Okay. We will begin by mentioning litigation updates, especially after today. So before reviewing, I did want to mention that the Texas Civil Rights Project and the ACLU, amongst other organizations, filed a lawsuit against Texas because of the law that we're about to talk about. Then the Department of Justice also filed their own lawsuit shortly after, and they've now joined forces to fight against Texas. On January 12th, TCRP, ACLU, the Department of Justice filed a motion for a preliminary injunction, which would stop this law from going into effect on March 5th. Texas could still try to, today the federal court, actually in the morning, the federal court ruled to block SB4, HB4 from going into effect March 5th, which is a huge victory. That's so awesome. Some light, finally. But Texas could still try to appeal, and they did shortly after. But still, this is a victory nonetheless, so we're happy about that. As of right now, this injunction stands until the Fifth Court Circuit of Appeals makes a decision on the appeal that Texas just submitted. As Texas organizers working together to protect our communities the best we can, we'll be sharing updates on litigation via our social media platforms, which are pinned at the end of this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so SB4, HB4 illegal entry creates two new crimes. The first part of this law focuses on illegal entry from a foreign nation. It states that peace officers can arrest or detain someone for illegal entry if there's probable cause to believe that they are a non-citizen that entered Texas from a foreign nation anywhere that was not a port of entry. I know that's a lot of words, so I'll try to simplify it. Port of entries are on the border. It's where we present our documents to immigration officials. So if you travel to the border, you've probably seen the lines of cars or people ready to cross the border. These are ports of entry. So if you did not enter Texas through one of those entries that are like the official entry to Texas or to the U.S., then you're affected by this law, which is honestly most people that are undocumented did not enter through a port of entry. Defense prosecution, which is a legal reason why a person couldn't be charged with a certain offense, applies only when a person is lawfully present here, meaning that they have a green card. They were granted asylum, so they are an asylee, or that they have DACA, they're a dreamer. These are the only exceptions to this. It's really important to note that there is no defense and you are not exempt from being charged with this if you have a pending immigration case. So a lot of folks that I know, for example, at Tohari, there's a lot of clients that are applying for their U visa, their T visa, whatever sort of protection there is out there for them. They would still be affected by this law because they don't officially have their immigration status. They are still in the application process. And the supposed implementation date was March 5th, and we'll see what happens with that. Alrighty, so I will now get into the second part of this law, which is illegal re-entry. So the first part was illegal entry, this one's illegal re-entry. So the law states that peace officers are able to arrest or detain folks for illegal re-entry if there's probable cause to think that they are here unlawfully. This means that anyone that is found in Texas after they've been denied admission, were deported, or left Texas while they have an outstanding deportation order, they will be charged. It's especially important to remember that there is no defense for this part of the law. That means that anyone that was denied entry or was deported and then later is found in Texas will be prosecuted and removed, even if at that point they have some sort of lawful status. So that means that even if someone has their green card and they had a order of deportation, and then they are found in Texas, and they see that they had that order of deportation and they know that they never left, then they're still affected, even though they have their green card. This law also adds a new crime for refusal to cooperate with your order to return that is up to 20 years. Alrighty, so I've mentioned the words peace officer several times. So I'm about to, in the next slide, talk about what exactly that means. But before that, there's several places where a peace officer cannot arrest or detain folks. These places include public or private schools, churches or other places of worship, healthcare facilities only if someone is there to receive treatment, safe ready facilities, also only if they're there to receive treatment. And if you don't know, safe ready facilities are specific to sexual assault victims. And then again, crucial for everyone to know that this is not a law that is limited to the border region, but it's affecting all of Texas. All right. So now I'll get into the 3 ways for someone to get ordered to return to a foreign nation. There are 3 ways, and the first one is a pre-adjudication. That word is hard for me to say. A pre-adjudication happening through a magistrate judge. A magistrate judge can order a person to be released and ordered to return to a foreign nation where they enter. The guidelines under this are that the person has to agree to the order, not have been previously convicted of illegal entry or re-entry, and the person is not charged with another offense such as a Class A misdemeanor or higher. It is really important, and I'm going to be stressing this throughout the whole presentation, that folks consult with an immigration attorney, as it's the best way to be prepared for these scenarios. Yeah, so I'll continue on. The second way would be pre-adjudication by a judge with the same guidelines applied to the magistrates. So all the same guidelines that are on this slide are the same ones that are here as well. Okay, and then the last way is through a post adjudication by a judge. This occurs after conviction of illegal entry or re-entry, and a person is required to return to the foreign nation from which they entered. In many cases, this ends up being Mexico. The first 2 are before a person is convicted, which gives someone the opportunity to consult with an immigration attorney or with an attorney in general. But then this way, because they are already convicted of the act, then they don't get that same opportunity in this post adjudication. Okay, so now who is a peace officer in Texas? What we mean by peace officer is pretty much anyone that is law enforcement in Texas. So here we have listed several. It's police officers, sheriffs, people or officers that are at like our national parks and stuff. And yeah, so anyone that you know pretty much that, like anyone that's law enforcement official is considered a peace officer in Texas. Okay. Now we'll chat about essential information for all of us to prepare ourselves and keep our community safe. We want to keep in mind that we don't want to navigate these laws with fear. We need to lead with power, not panic. We have to stand in solidarity with our communities by ensuring that they're empowered and equipped with the right information. Our best defense is offering offensive strategies, right? Like consulting with an immigration attorney, having a packet prepared for a worst case scenario, talking about this with your family and making sure they're informed. And then also defensive strategies, like the ones that you're in right now. Attending a Know Your Rights session is a defensive strategy. Education and training on such laws is the best way that you'll be equipped for this. Alrighty, so I want to know, what can we do to fight back against these laws and protect our communities? What do you think we can do as people, as power, like to bring power to the people and to reject these racist laws and show the unity amongst us? So I'll give y'all like 3 minutes to discuss and then we'll come back. Okay. In the chat, somebody responded, we can have conversations, share information like it's shared here. I've heard so many things from everyone in the mental chaos it is creating can't be good. This is dire, but clarifying things helps avoid unnecessary fear. That's a great comment. Does anybody from the back want to share any ideas? Protest, yes, we had a protest this week, actually. We were outside the rodeo and bringing attention to saying no to SB4. And it was great. We were on the Houston Chronicle. We are bringing attention to the issue, and that's exactly right, Hanja. Protesting is one amazing way to bring awareness to this. Speak with local representatives. Yes, we have been doing that. Okay, I'm just for the sake of time, I'm gonna move us ahead if nobody else is gonna share. Okay. Alrighty. Call them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. Yes, Hanja. Yes, vote them out. We have to be supporting people that support us and our communities, our families. We have to, we have to put, I'll move us along. Okay, so now I'll get into the Know Your Rights information more specifically. So I'll begin by speaking about the Fourth Amendment. So these are all rights that are granted to us under the U.S. Constitution, regardless of immigration status. All right, so the Fourth Amendment states that you do not have to consent to an unlawful search of property. This includes your vehicle, this cannot happen under this amendment without a judicial warrant. Something to keep in mind, though, with the Fourth Amendment is that that although this applies to like criminal law, it may be a little different when it comes to immigration law. And so just know that the Fourth Amendment may not apply at the U.S. border, as Customs and Border Patrol may conduct routine warrantless searches of people and items without a reasonable suspicion or probable cause, just because they're like suspicious that a crime has occurred or has been committed. So at the border, you know, immigration officials may search your car without a warrant and without consent. The Sixth Amendment states that you have the right to an attorney, and this is only for criminal matters. So the Sixth Amendment states that if you cannot afford an attorney for criminal matters, then one will be appointed to you. You will be provided with one. But one thing to note with the Sixth Amendment is that this does not apply to immigration. This is only for criminal law, which means that for anything related to immigration law or immigration purposes, you have the right to an attorney, but it's at your own cost, which obviously is crazy. Okay. Now the Fifth Amendment, a very important one, is that you have the right to remain silent. You do not have to answer any question from a peace officer relating your immigration status or how you entered the U.S. If you entered Texas from a foreign country, anywhere that wasn't a port of entry, you should not answer questions relating to how you entered and ask to speak to a lawyer. This is to avoid self-incriminating yourself, right? Under this new SB4, HB4 illegal entry and reentry law. The only questions you need to answer under Texas law are, if you're arrested, you need to state your name, your residence or your address, and your date of birth. If you are not under arrest, you do not need to provide any information. And then lastly, if you are not driving, if you're not the one driving, you do not need to show ID or papers. Alrighty. So as a passenger, you do not need to show ID to a Texas peace officer. But if you are a U.S. citizen and you're being questioned, you may want to show your ID. So because this law is so vague, right, we are relying purely on officials to assume or, you know, have probable cause, which means just suspicion that someone is here undocumented. Because of that, right, we're leaving decisions just to cite pretty much, right? So if someone is Black, if someone is brown, then you have a higher chance of being racially profiled. And in that case, if you are a U.S. citizen and you are being questioned by an official, in that case, it might be smart to show your ID and be like, I live here, I'm a citizen, back off. Okay. Alrighty, so, sorry, y'all, lost my place. Alrighty. Because it's not required that a passenger presents an ID, the risks of providing a foreign passport may outweigh any benefit and can possibly subject you to arrest. Alrighty. So this part of the presentation are just a few scenarios of what someone can say if they are in this situation. When a peace officer asks you about your immigration status, you can respond that you do not wish to speak with, do not wish to speak with them, answer their questions, or sign any documents based on your Fifth Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution. They ask you to sign documents or answer additional questions. You can respond by stating that you want to speak with your attorney before answering any questions or signing any documents. Alrighty, so before continuing on, there's an important thing to mention, which is that it's incredibly important to state exactly what this law is. This law is racist. If you're Black or brown, you are at risk of racial profiling, as this law leaves probable cause to be as vague as possible, merely relying on officers' suspicion. Therefore, keep in mind that although we do have constitutional rights and we exercise said rights, you may still be arrested and charged. There is just no guarantee. And although this can happen, every single person is still owed due process. Therefore, that means that the prosecutor, the person that's trying to charge you with this, still has to prove their case. But again, stressing the fact that if you did indeed enter Texas from anywhere that wasn't a port of entry, you shouldn't be answering questions. And yeah, because you want to avoid that self-conviction down the line. Okay. So now we'll chat about what to do if you are in ICE or CBP custody or Customs and Border Patrol custody. So this slide specifically is focused on when you're actually in custody. No, before you're actually in custody, and then the next one we'll get into when you're actually in custody. So before you're in custody, you shouldn't resist. You should answer questions truthfully when it comes to your name, your address, your date of birth. You should exercise your constitutional rights by stating that you want to remain silent and ask for your lawyer. You have the right to make a phone call. So, call your attorney, as the officer, the immigration official, cannot listen in on this phone call. You shouldn't sign anything, discuss immigration status, or make any decision without speaking to your attorney. If you're in jail, it's important to note that an immigration officer may visit you, and in those cases, you should also not be answering or signing anything. You should read all documents fully, and if you cannot understand or cannot read documents because of language barriers, maybe you don't speak the language, maybe they're just in English, ask for an interpreter and they should provide you one. Okay, so now once you are in ICE custody or in immigration custody, you still have the same right to a lawyer, and you can ask for a list of free or low-cost options. You can also contact your country's consulate to inform them that you've been arrested. But again, consult with an attorney first before doing that, because if you're seeking asylum, this may not be advisable. Same things of remaining silent, not signing documents, consulting with an attorney, all of that same stuff applies here. If you sign documents, you may be giving up your opportunity to try and stay in the United States. So yeah, really advise against that before consulting an attorney. Also, if you are here and you are undocumented, you have an A number. So we suggest that you memorize your A number or your immigration number and give it to your family as it helps them in being able to locate you once you are in custody. Terry, are you looking at the chat or should I open it?
One question was, is there a shorter version of I plead the fifth? And my response was, I plead the fifth, I need my lawyer is as short as you can get.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, they know what you're doing. You're exercising your constitutional rights. So yeah. Okay, so I will continue on. Okay. So we're getting close to the end. Now we want to know what resources will help protect our communities, right? So this is one way this one resource, but what are other ways that y'all think would be helpful to help you prepare or just be proactive? And I'll give y'all a few minutes. 3 minutes? Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Any ideas that we want to share? Some in the chat are saying having emergency numbers memorized or in your wallet. Yes. ILRC has like little red cards that actually have your constitutional rights on the card. and you can actually order them online and carry that in your wallet. And if you're ever come in contact with ICE or an immigration officer, you can present this and you don't even have to speak, and they can just read it and know that you are exercising your constitutional rights. So I really suggest that if you don't have those cards, that you go to the ILRC website and order those. Any other ideas from folks in the room? Yell it out, or come up here if you want. Okay, we'll move us along. Okay. Alrighty, so now we'll kind of get into how to prepare, right, for the worst case scenario, which is detention or removal from the U.S. So these are several offensive practices that we can do to be proactive and prepared for these scenarios. The first is having an emergency packet ready to prepare for bond or to give to an attorney. Keep in mind that any document that is not in English will need a certified translation. Things that should be in this packet are identification information, so like personal birth certificates, marriage license, IDs, etc. Also tax returns or just proof of income, proof that you're not a flight risk, like birth certificates of your US born children, or family members that have lawful permanent status here in this country, their birth certificates, also any employment proof, proof of assets, any involvement with community organizations as well. So like, you know, involvement at Uri Juntos, involvement at Tokre, involvement at Workers Defense Project, wherever. Also involvement at churches as well. Any medical information is also to be in that packet. And it can be for yourself or it can be for close family members. This is especially important, like if you're the caretaker of someone that is legally, like that has legal permanent status here. Also, just proof that you're not a danger to society. So evidence of like no criminal history can help. And if there was criminal history, proof of rehabilitation, like evidence that you went to a program or did something like that. Letters of good moral character from friends and family. And lastly, any certificates or awards that you may have. All right. Next is preparing an emergency packet, but this is just a continuation pretty much of the last slide. And so something to note here is, yeah, it's the same, wait, this is the same one. Okay, sorry. So now we'll move on to the family preparedness packet. This is more directed at preparing your family for what can happen whenever you are removed from the country. So in that packet, you might want to include a power of attorney, which is a letter that is prepared by an attorney that gives someone else the authority to care for your children. This also can give authority to someone else to manage your bank accounts or act on your behalf in other ways if you're not able to. So like that would mean in case of removal or arrest. You also want to include phone numbers, date of birth, bank account numbers, passport numbers, etc. And then again, showing that evidence of good moral character by the ways that I've mentioned. And yeah, any information like that can help. This information is specific to that packet, to like creating your own packet at home. So this can help, this resource can help, and was developed by Hills and Baker Ripley to prepare that packet. This next one is specific to preparing a packet related to your assets. So this would be like your bank accounts, your house, your car, or anything else. The idea in this is to just be prepared as possible and to have a plan in place to protect yourself and your family in case of removal. This one is specific to child custody. So what would happen to your children if you were in removal proceedings? And then lastly, be sure that the right people know where these packets are, right? So like if you want your children to know if they're, so that they're able to access this, then you want to show them a safe place, right? To where they can find all this information. So sharing that with your family, your kids, whoever is going to be helping you out throughout this process. And then, yeah, emphasizing again to meet with an immigration attorney sooner rather than later to just discuss if you're eligible for any sort of legal status. Also, if you have a Texas driver's license, a Texas ID, or an enhanced library card, make sure you carry it with you at all times. This slide is specific to domestic violence and sexual assault programs that provide support to survivors of violence. So emergency shelters are actually required by law to take in and serve all survivors regardless of immigration status. A survivor doesn't need to disclose their immigration status to be able to enter a shelter or receive services. Although some services and benefits are only for those that are eligible, and in some cases that it means only if you have status can you be eligible, but you can't be denied access to the shelter. And if you are, there's a hotline there that can guide you on what to do next. Okay, so we're very close to the end, and we're at the best part of the presentation, which is taking action. So that's what we talked about a little bit earlier, right? On how do we respond to this? We respond by being loud. We respond by being unavoidable. We respond by showing up. We respond by doing this and so much more, and we won't stop showing up. Again, I want to emphasize racist laws. Therefore, our best response is to equip, our communities with what they need, and also to empower the people that are most affected. We shouldn't be hiding in the shadows and scared and fearful of what this will do, because that just gives more and more power to the people that are harming us. It gets them exactly what they wanted. And so we don't want to do that. We want to do the complete opposite. So we need to lead with power, not panic. So we're sharing a few opportunities to advocate and be a part of these efforts. So one way is through the New Way Forward Act. And it's linked here, and so you'll have it in your packets. And they're doing a whole week of action, and a toolkit is linked there. So please go home and share that out and just be involved in the ways that you can. There's also opportunities to provide testimony. You can actually participate in Commissioner's Court and advocate for law enforcement to not implement such laws. And here we have listed that there's Commissioner's Court opportunities on March 5th and March 26th. And as long as you sign up 1 hour before the meeting starts, which is at 10 a.m., you can provide testimony. You can also join local groups that are organizing in response to these laws. There's calls every Monday at 5, right? 5, yeah, 5 to 6:30, that you can join via Zoom. And that's specific to Houston. So that's like a Houston response call. And there is not just people from organizations. There is also just concerned individuals. So I really do advocate that like everybody should be in that space and not just people that are connected to an organization, right? Because more people, more power, of course. So that's one opportunity. We'll also share that there's also a Tuesday call, and the Tuesday calls are actually every Tuesday at 11 a.m. And those are also through Zoom, and that is more of a statewide response. So that's like advocates across all of Texas that are working together. We actually work together to put together this slide deck. So like we divided up the slides and each organization took over, and it was a joint effort, and that's kind of how we've been doing things, and it's worked out well so far, I think. Also, attending these sessions, right? This is not the only Know Your Rights session. I'm sure there will be many, many more. And there's actually one tomorrow that I wanted to mention here tonight. And this one is completely in Spanish with English interpretation available. This will be tomorrow at Baker Ripley's Gulfton location. And it'll be from 6 to 7:30. We will also have the the Harris County Public Library there, and they will be making enhanced library cards for folks, as that's one of the campaigns that we're working on as Houston Leads. Okay, so we also ask that you support the campaigns that Houston Leads is advancing. And if you don't know what Houston Leads is, I'll give a quick overview, but Houston Leads is a coalition here in Harris County that brings together a bunch of immigrant rights organizations to advance local strategies that combat the barriers that immigrants face here in this country, and specifically in Houston and Harris County. So we work on several campaigns, and so we've actually linked information regarding them here. So the first resource that's at the very top is the Texas Toolkit that's related to those Tuesday calls that we have with all of the state of Texas immigrant rights advocates that join that space. We have like 2-pagers there, 1-pagers there, graphics there. We have the PowerPoints in so many languages. Yeah, we have a lot of like really good resources there. So if you ever want to put together your own Know Your Rights session, or just like share this information or this PowerPoint with other people, that's a really good resource, and it's updated as things change. Yeah. The next resource is the Harris County Enhanced Library Card, which I mentioned briefly in throughout the presentation, right? This is a ID that's for anyone. It's for everyone, regardless of immigration status. You just have to be a Harris County resident. And it's another way to identify yourself without just automatically officials knowing that you are from a foreign nation, that you are an immigrant. We also have information regarding the Harris County Immigrant Legal Services Fund, which is for anyone that is in deportation proceedings, and then information on the HARP program. We've also listed a bunch of organizations to follow on social media. I know we all use our phone a lot, maybe a little too much. And so that'll be the best place to find updates, right? They will be the first to post anything that happens in regards to these laws. Okay, we've made it to the end. Does anyone have questions? Yes, Crystal. Crystal.
Thank you for giving us such vital information. My first question is, when you said for power of attorney, how much does that cost? And what are like, I'm worried a lot about costs and this.
Yeah. So I don't really know, again, I'm not an immigration attorney or an attorney at all. So I don't know exactly how much a power of attorney costs when it comes to like people that have their own practices. I have no idea. Guessing they're not cheap because it is like time taken out of an attorney's day to like prepare this power of attorney. But there are free clinics, and there used to be free clinics. I don't know if there's still are. There used to be free clinics where like the nonprofits in Houston would like get together and have like a power of attorney clinic. And it has been discussed that we want to do something like that for this. Yeah, so like hopefully that is something that's coming down the line. I hope that folks do not like spend so much money for this power of attorney. I think that it's something that we can organize amongst ourselves. So once that happens, I'll make sure to share that out. And I think that's crucial. So good question, Crystal. Yes, I will.
In addition to that, how much should someone save in order to do a lot of this legal stuff?
Like money wise?
Yeah, like how much should I be expecting to save aside, especially if, we're gonna start, like all of these resources that you gave us to prepare for family?
Yeah.
How much should we be expecting to save?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I think it depends. It's like a case by case basis, right? Because everybody has their own specific case, and like depending on whatever you're charged with, I think that the fees might be more if your case is more difficult versus if someone's like case is much more simple. Like it just could vary, and it's like a case to case basis, and there's no way that I could sit here and be like, it's 1,000. Like I just can't. So I'm sorry about that one. Go.
For these resources that were provided in the QR code, are there any translations? Do you know? Because I QR code them and all in English, so I was just wondering, when we want to share these resources out, are there other translations?
But the know your rights are in like almost any language you can.
Yeah. So Crystal's question was if all the stuff that was at the end of the PowerPoint, so like the family preparedness packet and all of this, if this is in other languages, and as of right now, I don't believe so. This was all created by like Baker Ripley, Hills, so I think that it's good to note. And I think that we can connect with the folks that actually created this stuff to see if they have it in their budget to like be able to translate. What languages would be good? I'm guessing Vietnamese. Yeah. Yeah. I'm guessing the same. Yeah. Yeah, because some of these aren't even in Spanish. So yeah. For sure, great point, and that's something that we can follow. Any other questions?
This is not question, but this gentleman is asking, okay. Hello, my friend, Mr. Lee, is asking, he is very grateful to have this good information, but he is also asking, are you guys disseminating this information actually who do not have a citizenship or who coming the new immigrant? Do they know this kind of information?
We're trying as hard as possible. We are going to community centers and putting this information up. We're sharing it to every single person that I know. Yesterday, I was at Baker Ripley talking to people, inviting them to the session tomorrow. So we're trying. I think the more attention we bring, like for example, we were at the rodeo protesting. I think that brought a lot of attention. And I think that did a lot and helped us at least show that there is like many people that are, ready to fight against this. And I think that that gives people the security to become more involved. Because I think right now, people are scared and people are fearful. But if we're out there and we're like, hey, you know, no to SB4, no to SB4, all, you know, being loud and just not backing down and not being afraid, I think that that gives the folks that actually are undocumented and are scared to come to these sessions for whatever reason, it gives them that security and that little bit of a push. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, I would love that. Yes.
First of all, I will speak in Korean first, and then I will translate in English. 안녕하세요. 우리 훈토스에서 근무하는 잔팀이라 합니다. 제가 아마 한 30년 전쯤 서로 기억을 하는데, 제가 그때 우리 애들이 한 8살, 그 밑에 애가 한 3살, 2살 정도 됐는데, 그때 무슨 일이 있어가지고 저쪽 텍사스 남부 맥칼렌인가 할린젠인가 그쪽으로 한번 애들하고 같이 차를 타고 한번 간 적이 있어요. 그런데 갈 때는 아무 생각이 없이 그냥 갔어. 근데 혹시라도 싶어서 집에서 이제 그때 영주권자였으니까 영주권하고 다른 서류는 아마 별로 준비를 안 했었던 것 같아요. 그래가지고 이제 그쪽으로 내려갔는데 차를 타고 갈 때는 뭐 아무 이상이 없었어요. 누가 뭐 근무를 한다든지 뭐 이런 건 아무것도 없었는데, 갔다가 올라오는데 뭐 하여튼 뭐 근무 같은 게 있었을 거예요. 뭐 내려갈 때는 전혀 그런 게 안 보였었는데 올라올 때 보니까 그런 근무소 같은 게 있더라고요. 그래서 이제 거기 뭐 폴리스인가 누군가 나와가지고 너희들 어디서 오느냐라고 묻더라고요. 그래서 우리 텍사스에 사는데 그 폴리스 갔다 온다 하고 이제 간단하게 얘기했어요. 그랬더니 너 아이디를 한번 보자고 그러더라고요. 그래서 그때 마침 우리가 그 영주권 카드를 마침 가지고 있었어요. 물론 드라이브 라이센스 물론 가지고 있었지만, 그래서 드라이브 라이센스 먼저 보여줬어요. 이거 드라이브 라이센스 하겠더니 이거는 안 되고 이것도 괜찮은데 너가 여기 텍사스에 미국의 정식 주민이라든지 그런 걸 갖다 증명할 수 있는 서류를 보여달라고 저한테 얘기했던 것 같아요. 근데 마침 우리가 영주권 받을 때가 얼마 안 돼가지고 영주권 카드를 가지고 다녔었어요. 그래서 그거를 이제 뭐 접근하고 이제 사람하고 애들은 뭐 여기서 태어났기 때문에 벌써 이런 건 생각도 못하고 그냥 갔었죠. 그래서 이제 그 영주권 카드를 보여줬더니 한참 걸렸어요. 하여튼 어쩌니까 그런데 그냥 가라고 하더라고요. 지금 생각하면 만약에 지금 생각하면 그때는 그래도 뭐 그렇게 뭐 엄격하게 뭐 남부에서 올라오는 사람들을 막고 이런 상황은 아니었지만 그래도 그 정도 심했었는데, 지금 만약에 시민권을 갖지 않고 영주권을 갖고 남부 쪽으로 혹시 가셨다가 오시는 분들은 굉장히 조심하셔야 될 것 같아요. 그때보다는 지금 워낙 이민 문제가 문제가 심해졌고, 그 다음에 관리라든지 통제라든지 이게 너무 워낙 심해졌기 때문에 어디 가실 때 특히 남부 쪽으로 버드 쪽으로 가실 때는 필요한 서류는 가능하면 지참을 해서 가시는 게 좋을 것 같아요. 예를 들면은 시민권자들 같으면은 내가 뭐 패스포트를 가지고 간다든지, 아니면 뭐 패스포트가 없으신 경우는 뭐 시민권 증서를 가지고 가신다든지 그런 식으로 해야 오실 때 크게 문제없이 오실 수 있지 않겠나 하는 그런 생각이 듭니다. 지금 생각해 보니까 그때는 그런 걸 몰랐기 때문에 뭐 어떤 얼렁뚱땅 이렇게 해서 지내오긴 왔습니다만은 지금 생각해 보면 굉장히 위험한 어떤 유행이 아니었나 하는 생각이 들어요. 지금은 워낙 그런 이민이라든지 이런 문제들이 굉장히 심하기 때문에 어디 다니실 때 그런 쪽으로 조금 생각을 하시면서 다니면 되지 않겠나 하는 생각이 들어서 옛날에 한 30년 전에 기억을 말씀을 드렸습니다. 감사합니다. What I'm saying is that I am telling my story about 30 years ago. At that time, I went to the south border. I cannot remember exactly, but there McAllen or Harlingen at that time. I and my wife and my two sons traveled to some city over there. When we are going to there, we couldn't see anything. I mean, no gates, nor or some kind of things checking identity or something like that. Just we are moving smoothly to that Harlingen. I think it's Harlingen. But when we come back to USA, there is some kind of checkpoint, that kind of center, and then some kind of the officer came out, tell me show your ID. So at that time, I just brought one driver license and green card. At that time, I was a permanent resident. So first time I showed my driving license with my wife's one, and they said it is not enough. You can show another one. So I showed fortunately we brought our green card. So I and my wife took our green cards and showed them. So it took a little long time to check our identities. Later they said it's okay. So they will pass us to go to the USA. So I think if you don't know something, you can be very brave, right? So at that time, we didn't know about anything about that kind of thing. So we just trip there, and we didn't think there is any problem coming back to USA, because we are legal residents in Texas. But I think I'm worried if at that time, if we didn't have the permanent resident card with us, I'm not sure what kind of thing happened at that time, So nowadays, that kind of control or management is getting worse and worse. So whenever you are going to the south border, especially for the south border, I think you need to prepare the important documents, not just the driver license. If you have green card or permanent resident, you need to prepare the green card. If you're a citizen, you need to bring a passport or citizenship the document. I think it can make you safer to come back from there to the USA, that kind of thing. That's my, the old experience story. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Kim, for sharing your story. And thank you, Alondra. This was a ton of life-saving information you gave us today. So just remember, we protect ourselves, we protect our families, we protect our communities. So to his question from earlier, what can we do? You need to go home, tell your family about SB4 and show them this presentation. Go through the presentation with everybody you know. And it's not just Black and brown people that will be racially profiled. Every person in this room will be racially profiled. You only need to be suspected of entering illegally to be arrested, so no one is safe. And lastly, on that note, Hyunja will speak to us on elections. Thanks.
여러분, 감사합니다. 그러니까 만약에 감사합니다. 오늘 와주셔서 감사드려요. I'm going to talk about election. 그러니까 there is primary election. Yeah. So early voting day is until this Friday, until tomorrow, and election day is next Tuesday, from 7 to 7. You can go vote anywhere in Harris County. So we are also having Korean American voting day next Tuesday at Trinity Mental Community Center and Korean Central Presbyterian Church from 10 to 4. Get out the vote. In Korean. 여러분, 다음 이제 지금 선거가 한창 진행 중에 있습니다. 그래서 조기 투표는 이번 주 금요일, 내일까지 조기 투표를 하실 수가 있고요. 그리고 선거일은 다음 주 화요일이에요. 다음 주 화요일인데 우리는 한인 투표일로 해서 지난번에 한 트리니 맨델홀 커뮤니티 센터 아시죠? 거기 하고 또 한인 중앙장로교회에서 투표를 할 거예요. 오시면은 우리가 도우미로 거기서 기다리고 있을 테니까 투표장에 가시지 말고 저희들에게 오셔서 투표 용지가 어떤지 한번 보고 들어가시면 좋겠습니다. 그래서 유권자로 등록이 되어 있다면 꼭 투표하세요. 감사합니다. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Terry, round of applause.
Round of applause. Thank you all. That's all. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on the chat. Good night.